Hello and welcome to the Mission TV Live. We're so glad you could join us on this Monday evening. And we have a special topic again this week. We're going to finish the topic we started last week, and that is objections to missions. Tonight is part 2, and last week is part 1. So we had quite a long list if you were here with us last week, and we want to finish that. And so we're going to try to go quickly through those at the beginning of this show, and then we have a video to share with you. And then during the last part of the show, we want to completely open it up for your comments, your questions. So if you think of anything now during the first part of the show while we're talking about the objections and going through this list, please feel free to send those in, and we'll cover those in the second half. And so save your phone calls, but please feel free to call. The email address is live@missiontv.com. Facebook is Mission TV Live is the page. And then Twitter is MissionTV_com. I always forget that. I need to have them put it on the, anyway. So please stay tuned for the second half, and please participate also. We're very, very much looking forward to any comments or questions you have to add to the show this evening. I have my husband John with me. Hello, dear.
Hi, darling.
And I forgot to say that I'm Natalie Wood. I always forget that.
And my name?
Is John. I already said that.
Okay, sorry.
You're just checking me, right?
Yeah, just checking. Make sure you remember.
Well, we do have a verse that kind of goes with our topic this evening, and that is in Luke chapter 14 and verse 27. And Jesus is saying, he's going through, there's a whole section here, but the verse I want to share is, "And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." So Jesus is talking about bearing a cross, and he's talking about things that are difficult.
Yeah. Before we get into that, I think that this we're trying a new format on the show here, leaving the second half of the show completely open to see what happens. And this is the time for you, because when I watched the show when I was in Thailand, and I watched you doing the show, you did such a great job. I'm so proud of you. I was so interested in what you guys were saying that I didn't have a chance to formulate a question and call or email that in. So we felt that maybe we should just kind of open this up, make sure people have a chance. So I just want to make that note. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. Who does not carry their cross cannot be my disciple. We're going to go through a lot of the questions of reasons why people don't want to be a missionary. And
should we get started?
Yeah.
Okay.
Being Jesus' disciple says something.
It's serious.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right.
And if we have him in us, flowing through us, without any blockage in his will in our lives, we will be like him and do the things that he did, which is leave our comfort for a purpose.
Right. And I'm sure that if anybody, Jesus had lots of reasons not to come to this world.
Yeah.
He had many, many reasons he could have chosen to stay home.
Yeah.
So he had to deal with the objections to missions in his own life.
Right.
And because he decided to overcome those, surrender those to his Father, he came.
Yep.
So I think he makes it possible for us also.
Yeah. So
let's go ahead.
Okay, first objection. I'm not called. A lot of people say that. If I heard a call, then I would go, but I'm not called. But the truth is, we're all called.
Right.
And
Matthew
28,
19 through 21.
It says, go ye into all the way. It didn't say, okay, half of you go, or just the most spiritual go, or just 10% that feel like it, or the 0.0019%.
Which is what we have from North America today.
Right. You guys can go. The rest, you need to stay put and stay home, because it's dangerous out there. He didn't say that.
Well, that's one of the other objections.
Yeah. I'm not called. So we're all called.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we should need God's leading in our lives to stay and get a regular job, get a regular education, get a regular job. We would need that more than we would need a call to go, because he's already called us to go. He didn't call us to stay.
He sent us, right.
Exactly. So if somebody's deciding on a certain career.
I think that's one of our later questions.
Okay, so we'll keep going here. Question number 2, the work's already finished.
We've heard that before.
I have one word for that. Not.
No. Right.
We have some graphics here. This is just one division. This is the division of my good friend, Pastor Doug Venn. He was on a special live on Sabbath afternoon a couple of weeks ago. And this is his division. Okay? And the red parts
14 countries.
are all the countries where the language, this is by language group. Okay? These are all the places where there is no work going on at all. And as you can see, there's a lot of places here. A major surprising fact is that not everybody speaks English. As a matter of fact, about 6.5% of the world has English as their mother tongue. 6.5%.
Right, and everybody else speaks
other languages. There's almost 7,000 languages in the world today. Very small percentage actually speak English. But even though there's only 6.5% with English as their mother tongue, 92% of all Christian giving goes to minister to the English-speaking part of the world. So
it's a little bit lopsided.
Not done. We praise God that AWR is in 80 languages. There's almost 7,000 languages. And Jesus says, I will not come until the gospel is preached to every nation, kindred, tongue, language, and people.
And people.
And
so everybody's included.
Everybody's included. In a lot of these places, there's no missionary, there's no Bible, there's no Christian literature, there's no Christian, nothing. And so, yeah, here's another one. You can see the unreached.
This is that map as a pie chart.
Right. So the red part is what still we have to do.
85% in that division by languages.
Huge. Yeah. Massive. Okay. So here's another objection, another reason for not going. Others are doing it, or let others do it, or somebody else is more qualified, or, and a lot of times this is unspoken. But the truth is, there is no one else doing it.
There's very few.
By statistics.
Right.
Okay. Now,
0.0019, you said, from North America.
Something like that. And Mrs. White says not everyone can go as missionaries. And I've seen a lot of people say that over and over and over and over. In fact, that's like the most quoted Ellen White quote on missions. Not everyone can go as missions. Not everybody can be a missionary to foreign seas. But somebody can.
Well, and she also says every true believer is a missionary. So how do you reconcile that with choosing to quote the one instead of the other?
Well, a lot of people are now saying, well, everybody's a missionary. That's true. I don't have to go overseas to be a missionary. That is true. But what's the difference between a missionary and a witness? And I think we're trying to kind of get ourselves off the hook. Yeah, as we're here, we need to be a missionary. But that doesn't mean that no one should go as a missionary.
Right.
And that doesn't mean I shouldn't go as a missionary. This is a wonderful magazine, Mission 360. And if you get a chance to get this, you probably get it if you're a member of the church, at least your family.
Yeah.
But this is the new magazine for Adventist Mission. Now, Adventist Mission is the official, it's like the mission arm of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So if you get
church planting in particular.
Yes, specializing
missions.
in frontline. This is their new magazine, and in the back, this is the first issue. You will see North America. Number of missionaries from North America officially is 235. And I'll just set this up here, let the cameras get a shot of that. So 235 official missionaries from North America in a denomination of, well, the North American division, about over 1 million people. So what's the percentage of foreign missionaries that 235 would be for 1 million?
A little
small
very
percentage.
Very little. 0.00 something. Something.
What would be too many? Is it like 90%, 10%, 2%? I would think a tithe would be reasonable. So
at least.
Yeah, a tithe. 10%.
Well, there are places where Mrs. White says if we were awake to duty, there would be 1,000 where there's one.
Yes, so there should be 235,000.
At least.
Yeah, that would be a good percentage. Maybe we could actually impact some of those
unreached people groups?
Yeah, there's only 7,000 languages.
We haven't allowed ourselves much time, so we need to keep moving.
I have to be trained first. Okay, training. Training is good, but what we recommend
kind of training?
is to go and see what it's like in the mission field to get an idea of the kind of training you may need. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things, a lot of activities in the mission field that don't need a specialist. Maybe there's a carpenter. Maybe there's somebody that speaks English, you know?
Yeah, if you're going to be a language teacher,
Absolutely.
English is the one they most want.
Yeah, and life is missionary training. Life is missionary
Right.
training.
And we know a lot of people that aren't specially trained for anything, but they can be friendly.
Absolutely.
They can be friends of the people, and there's so much value in that.
Yes, yes.
So,
But what about my career?
well, this kind of goes along with the training. But
But
maybe
the
we should
career-
be career missionaries.
Yes, yes. And this is the whole viewpoint that Jesus had, is he came knowing that the end was the reward, okay? Because when he, at the end of his ministry on earth, it was a complete failure. All of his followers left him. He was dead on a cross. But then afterwards, all the seeds that were planted became fruit, and the fruit is continuing to develop even now. So he looked at the future. If we're looking at this life, if this life is all that we have, yeah, forget about missions, get a career. But if there is a next life, and what
Which
we
we
do
believe there is as Christians.
and what we do in this life affects how we're going to live the next life, then it seems
And it
like the
does.
career should be a little bit longer than just the 70, 80 years that we have here. So if we're just thinking about my career, then we're thinking about my income, my comfort, things like that. Jesus says we got to abandon that as Christians. Okay, I have to pay off my student loans first. But it's amazing how now God can take care of any problem.
Right.
And this is a call, I believe, to prayer. Say, God, I want to be your missionary. What do I do with my student loans? You can pay off your student loans while you're in the mission field. You can pay off your
God.
student loans before you go.
Yeah, we've heard of people that God provided for them to pay it off, and other people where God provided somebody that would pay on it every month for them
Exactly.
in their behalf. So he chooses a different way, but if he wants you to go, he will provide
Exactly.
the way.
And even though you go to the mission field, you're still going to have needs, you're still going to have expenses. And God has 1,000 ways to provide for those. And we only know a few of them. We don't know all of them.
Yeah, we
So
could-
God can take care of this issue. Now, we know some students that have graduated with a pretty big debt, and they've stayed, and they've paid it off relatively quickly, depending on the job and everything that they have. But what happens is the longer you delay it, the less likely you are to go.
The urgency dies.
The urgency passes away because everybody is just doing their thing, and it's very easy to just settle. You know, we're actually living. We watched Pilgrim's Progress the other night, and I believe that we're actually living right here in North America in the forest of enchantment,
Yeah.
the enchanted forest. There's this vapor of everything's fine, just relax, kind of going through, and the spiritual life is just so.
Yeah, it's not.
This is one that I haven't really figured out yet. I'll go when I'm retired. Have you ever heard that?
It seems like we heard it, but it doesn't really make sense to save for God what's left.
Yeah, I'll go when I'm retired. My
Anyway.
feeling is we started Jesus for Asia when I was 43 because I was afraid that I was going to get to the end of my life and not have done anything for God. And so I realized that I was past my prime already. And I didn't have very many actual functioning years, maybe 20 years. That's not very long to make a difference, to do something for God. And so we quit. We quit our job after 6 months of actually praying to God, please, I want to work for you. And then finally he opened the door for us to start going in. And that's something that we have to...
But I feel like we're old already. It's like, man, how would we do anything if we waited till we retire?
Yeah.
I have so much respect for retired people that are in the mission field.
Yeah, and
But
they're
it's
having a
like-
ball, but
Yeah.
for me, I wish I'd started earlier when I was younger.
In the prime of our lives, that's what we should have given to God, was the prime of our lives. And
Yes.
thankfully, there's a little bit of prime left in us.
We need to get primed every once in a while.
Oh, this is a
A big one. We hear this a lot
yes, far too many times.
from leaders.
Surprising who we hear it from.
Yes. But is it true?
Okay, let's. No.
Well, I haven't figured out the metric for which this is true. Is it numbers?
Where you measure this? Yeah.
Yeah.
What statistics you look at?
To measure
Well,
that this
you
is
know,
bigger.
I have a theory about that.
Yeah?
Wherever we are is the biggest mission field.
Yeah, that's true.
So
It
the
seems
biggest mission field could be a small place, a small village in India. It can be, a university somewhere. It can be, but where we are is the
My
biggest mission
backyard,
field. What we see,
Yeah.
right?
So America's the biggest. Okay, there's 300 million people living in America. There's 650 million people living in the North India Union. There's four
One
times as many
portion,
people
right at the
living
top of
in
India.
India. The total, 4 times as many people, and yet they have just a fraction of the number of pastors and the amount of funds
Workers.
and resources and stuff like that. They say, well, it's the hardest. No. There's many places in the world that are much harder to do evangelism work than
Yeah.
America. In fact, So is it the least resourced? Absolutely not.
No,
It's probably,
no way.
It's definitely the most resourced part of the
I
world.
think that's one of the reasons they say it's the biggest mission field.
So the thing
Because
is
it's
that
like people are,
should we keep putting more and more and more resources into the same thing, into the same place, or should we start to spread those out a little bit? Well, obviously, we need to start spreading these
we
things out.
believe they need to spread out, right?
Why should I go to serve them? They worship idols. Well, actually, that's the reason we should go serve them.
Well, if we're not going to serve them, then we're worshiping an idol also.
Could idol be our own comfort,
It could be.
our own interest, our own career? Could all these things become idols? I used to think, why did people worship the cow? The cow, I have no interest in worshiping a cow. That's not appealing to me. Till I started to realize that a cow is where they got their food, they got their milk, they got their clothes, all these things, their wealth. That was the cow. So of course they'd worship it. So what am I worshiping? What replaces the cow for me today? Is it my bank account? Is it my job? Well, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Several things.
Yeah.
We need to
So,
keep going. We have a lot to cover here.
God needs people to stay home and support those that go. You know why God uses the people at home to support those that have gone? It's because that's the only way that He can get them to participate in His
in his mission.
in His mission. And so if everyone at home left and went, do you think God would find a way to support them?
I don't know if he budgeted for the end of time.
That's true. Maybe He can't figure that out.
He's probably
this is the same God that took
running
40
short.
or several million people into the wilderness for 40 years. And He could
provided
support
for
them
them
in
the
the
whole
Negev
time.
desert. And they came out with plenty of food and
and their clothes didn't wear out and their
He
shoes.
can do that. But today, I think it's the same
I think
God.
we have a lack of faith.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. And we're looking for objections to
And
missions.
there are people that, but my family and friends would frown on me going.
That's
but-
very true. One of the biggest obstacles for a lot of people is their family
Yes. Yes.
and their friends. The comments their friends make
even
raise all these objections.
even wonderful Adventist youth, young people that have been raised in Adventist families, even families that have promoted missions, that have read mission stories and stuff like that, when their kids want to go as missionaries, they're like, no, you can't do that. That's not safe. And you're taking my grandkids? Why are you doing this? It's amazing to me that we're not thinking like Christ would think, or that God gave up His Son to die. We're not giving up our kids to die. They're just going to another country, on the same world. And so, but the question for me is, yeah, maybe my family and friends would frown on me, but what about God's frown?
That's a frightening thing.
I think I would rather have my family and friends frown on me than God. But I need to stay here and lead my relatives to the Lord first. If I go, how will they get saved? Sometimes I believe that going is the best witness you can give to your unsaved relatives, because they see you're doing something, they see you're committed, they see that you are willing to live what you believe, and they'll keep in touch. We've got Facebook and email and all this kind of stuff. They can keep in touch and see what you're doing. They may not understand at first, and they may be upset about it, but eventually they can see, and they'll see that you're doing something.
And
So
the
this
love
may
of
be the way.
Christ that comes to us when we go, the realization of them as our brothers and sisters in Christ, that love that comes to us, that becomes a part of us, will flow out to our family.
Right.
And will be even more of a blessing to them.
That's right.
And I think they will be drawn to God because we are more a part of what Jesus is.
Yes, but God needs people to stay here to be a witness to the lost in America. Well, He does need people, but does He need you? And if you left, would anybody else be there to witness to them? Yes.
Lots of people.
Yes.
The question is, if we stay in America, are we witnessing to them?
Exactly.
You know, most of us I've heard this used as an excuse
Go ahead.
so many times by people
Yes.
that they don't do it themselves.
Right.
They use it as an excuse not to go, but they don't do it themselves.
Yeah, so
So-
if you want to stay home to be a witness, what you need to do is go and do some research and find a county, or a city in America that has no Adventist church, no Adventist presence, a dark county, dark community, and go move there and be a witness, be a missionary there in America. Then you'd be a missionary.
Yeah.
But I need to
As
get
long as you pray and ask God if that's where He wants you.
Right. But I need to get an education first. Well, again,
It's the same thing as the career and the training.
exactly. Go check it out. Find out what kind of education you need. And the truth is, there's a lot of places that having an education would be more difficult to witness in than if you didn't. Depends on where you need to go. If you're going to the cities, maybe an education would be good, but check it out first.
Yeah, we had somebody that told us they wanted to be a construction worker, so they went and worked construction in the mission field, and they realized they didn't want to do that. So then they thought they wanted to be a nurse, so they went and worked at a clinic in the mission field. They realized they didn't want to do that.
Right.
And so they kept going and helping in different places in the mission field till they found their place.
Right.
And then they got more training
Right.
for that.
Exactly. Okay, but I need to get married first. And this is something I've heard, but I know two people that went to the mission field, and the mom, the parent says, you need to get married. There's nobody in the mission field. They go to the mission field and they find somebody that's mission-minded. That's wonderful. They get together and they get married. They're having happy, wonderful marriages because they married people that were like-minded. It's easier to find a mission-minded person in the mission field than here.
Right, yeah. We know a lot of people that thought they married missionaries and then didn't go.
Right.
So,
But I have a family to support. God doesn't want me to neglect them, does He? Well, okay, here's something that is really, I know that Paul said, he that does not provide for his own is worse than an infidel. But he was talking about lazy people, okay? Don't be lazy. Now, missionaries don't have to be lazy either. And you can be a non-lazy missionary, okay? But how do you support your family? This was one of my challenges, that when I wanted to go into mission work, into full-time mission work, how was I going to support my family? Well, the truth is that God cares more about them than He cares about me, than I care about them. He cares about me.
Right.
But He cares about them more than I do. So He can support them. He can provide for them. He can work it out so that they have enough to eat, just as much as I can. And it says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. In the verse before that, it says, the Gentiles seek after those things, what you're going to eat and what you're going to wear. So if you're seeking after the things like what you're going to eat and what you're going to wear,
supporting
are you
your
a
family.
Gentile? Are you a Christ follower? That's the question. Okay, but the mission field is dangerous. Of course it's dangerous.
It's dangerous to stay here.
So is driving your car down the freeway, but you do it. And living in America, America's having a reputation for being a dangerous place to live, you know? But we're still here. We still stay. But Mrs. White says that, and it's so true, that the most safe place in the world that you can be is in the center of God's will.
That's where we need to find.
If you're in the center of God's will, even if you die, you're safe. And that's awesome.
Like Psalm 91,
Yes.
under the shadow of the Almighty.
But there's enough need right here. Yeah, there's enough need right here, but there's a lot more need over there.
Yeah, we could
Which
start in on the
means-
statistics, and
Which
we could
means-
spend a whole hour just on the statistics of the need.
Which means you can have a bigger impact over there.
That's true.
And if our goal should be as many people learn about Christ and enter the kingdom of heaven before we die, before Jesus comes. So if we have a bigger impact somewhere else, shouldn't we be there? Shouldn't we go there? There's somebody that says, I mean, you take a little candle. I've got one candle to burn. And if I go into a room filled with light, you'll hardly notice the candle. But if I go to a room that's totally pitch black, it'll stand out and people can see that for miles. The same thing here. I'm just not ready to make that kind of sacrifice and commitment. And I think that's
the key to all of them.
That's the bottom line. And if we're not really willing to make that sacrifice and commitment to Jesus' cause, I saw a video that says, in fact, we're going to watch this video next. It says that how you treat.
Don't.
I'm going to emphasize this
Okay.
because you'll hear it in the video.
Okay.
But how you treat the least of these is how you treat your God. So if we treat missions as something we want to avoid, and then we want to put on the back burner, and we don't want to deal with it, we don't want to look at it, we don't want to go there, that's how we treat God. That's what he says.
How can we have the relationship with him that we so desperately need?
And when he says, I want you to go, and we say, I don't want to go, and we don't go. We don't do it. See, we can think as much as we want. We can think all the right thoughts, and we can believe all the right beliefs, but if we don't do what he says, you call me Lord. If you call me Lord, why don't you do what I say? Do. And the difference between the sheep and the goats in Matthew 25 is some of them did. It depends on what you do. It's not all about, I go to, just going to church on Saturday, or I just believe these certain things. It's what do you do? And it's much, much more than just your personal life. People say, I can be a missionary in my everyday life, in the little things. Well, what about in the big things? Well, what is your everyday life? Well, it's like we think that the career, that's just something that happens. And then we just have to be nice, and that's the sum total of being a Christian.
Yeah, the whole idea that I'm just going to live it. People are going to see by my silent witness. And silent witness is powerful. But is that all we're doing?
Right.
Is that all we are giving him as a silent witness?
Right. 9 o'clock Monday morning,
thing.
It's like, why are we doing what we're doing? Clocking in. Is it for mission? Is it for Christ's mission? Or is it for Matthew 6:31, 32? So I can eat something and I can be clothed. So we're going to go to an amazing video here. And during the video, something's going to happen.
Yeah, we'll be a little bit different when we come back.
Okay, here we go.
You see, there is a caste system in heaven, but it's exactly backwards from the caste system this world naturally creates. This world applauds and esteems the wealthy and the powerful and the privileged and the talented. That's not how God's system works. Jesus came and he proved it. He took the lowest spot and he was God. The bigger you get in the kingdom of heaven, the lower position you take. The special ones in God's kingdom are the weak ones. The ones who can't fight for themselves, the ones that can't speak for themselves, the ones that don't have someone to feed them, the ones that don't have someone to protect them. And Jesus says those are the prized ones, and you treat them as the royalty here on earth. And the way you treat them is ultimately the way you're treating me. What you do unto the least of these is how you're ultimately treating your God. Christianity is taking what has been purchased by the cross, the behavior of heaven, nature of Jesus Christ, and transplanted it into the heart of men and women down here on earth, so that they behave not like this world, but like heaven. And so when this world sees them, they're different. There is something odd about them. They are from another realm. What does it look like? It's noble. It's brave. It's courageous. It's selfless. It is willing to spend itself for the weak. I was doing some study on Liberia. If you want to be disturbed, start studying Liberia. This 4-year-old boy who's sitting on the side of the road, no one to comfort, no one to take him in, no shelter, no food, nothing. So in the middle of that night, I wake up. And it's like God had already deposited a question, and it was waiting to meet me when I popped awake in the middle of the night, 2 in the morning. I had this picture of this little boy in Liberia in front of me. And God asked me a question. What if that was Hudson, my 4-year-old? Eric, what if that was Hudson? You don't mess with a father's heart. What if that was Hudson? If my boy was on the side of a road across the world from me, suffering, totally alone, not knowing what's happening. He's not old enough to comprehend this. He's abandoned. He has no one to fight for his cause, no one to give him a voice. He doesn't even know how to articulate his circumstances. He's hungry and no one's feeding him. He's starving to death. If my son is in that situation, stick a concrete wall in front of me and I claw through it with my bare hands. This is my son we're talking about. And if I couldn't get there, I would call up every friend I have. And I would say, I have a son over in Liberia. You call yourself my friend. I need you to get on a plane. And I need you to get to him. I'll give you the coordinates. I'll do whatever it takes. But I need you to get to my son and be a father to him. God's response. Eric, that's my Hudson. That is my Hudson. And he's looking to us. And he's saying, I'm calling up everyone I know. Everyone on my list that calls himself by my name, that says they're a friend of God. And I'm saying, my son is over in Liberia. Are you willing to get on the plane and get to him? We have a cause, but we don't want to see it. And it's when we finally acknowledge the fact that something is wrong with us, not with the world out there. If we start with this little group here, and we say, God, you need to fix this. I suffer from depraved indifference. So do you. Oh, we care. It's not that that doesn't move us at some level to hear about this little child over in Liberia. We care, but we can go home tonight and sleep just fine. How is that? It's because there's an indifference to that life. And it's naturally born within us that that life isn't affecting us. It's not in our backyard. We're not related to it. It's someone else's issue. In fact, we start quoting scriptures about God being a father to the fatherless. We're like, thank you, God, that you're a father to that child. He says, remember, you call yourself my body. I'm not there except through you. Your hands, Eric, those are my hands. Your feet, those are my feet. That heart, that's my heart. And if it's not beating, my heart's not beating on this earth anymore. I work through my body. I'm a father to the fatherless through my body. I rescue the weak and the vulnerable through you. And if you're not doing it, no one is. There is a solution for our disease, which is known as sin. And it's Jesus Christ. There's a solution for these dying children. And it's Jesus Christ. Might sound overly simplistic. That's it. That is the solution. Because Jesus Christ will change a man like Eric Ludy into a man that feels what Jesus Christ is feeling. And he cannot stay in suburbia USA anymore and do nothing. Heroes are made because they are moved, not in their head, but in their heart. You have to be moved at such a level where you will shed blood. Jesus Christ was moved. For God so loved the world that he gave. And that son that was given suffered and died. For what? For the cause that is being laid before us tonight. It wasn't head knowledge about the disaster taking place in this world. It was life abandonment unto the cause of those that are dying, unto the eternal souls that are around us. Do we care? At the level God cares? Do we carry a burden? When we go home tonight, will we grieve over the fact that those children are God's children? And he is longing for an advocate to stand up and say, I'm willing, God, to fight for what is yours. I'm willing, God, burden me. When Jesus was in Gethsemane, you know what he was there for? He was there for life. He was burdened with the weight of it all for life. and he was willing to sweat great droplets of blood. Are we, for our King and his glory, we will rescue these little ones.
Well, I'd like to welcome Luis Hine to the show this evening with us.
Thank you.
Welcome, Luis. And honey, how can we respond to a video like this? I mean,
Well, it's a phenomenal video, but I think it points out an incredibly important issue is that the response or the solution is Christ. Christ, we don't care. We don't have love originating within us, but Christ does. And Christ in us, working out his life within us, has this desire, this love for others.
that will do anything.
That will change, like he says, will change a man and put within him the love for others, and the willingness to sacrifice for the sake of others. That's the solution. That's the key, and I believe the reason why missions is the key to overcoming the Laodicean state that we're in, is that this gives Christ a way to work, and is actually the working out of his life for others. I mean, we have such a disparity in lifestyle in some places. You know, the idea that people comfortable would go and work for people and be uncomfortable to do that. But to do that voluntarily, that's voluntarily entering into the life of Christ, the life of Christ. And it says that when we minister for others, then he ministers to us, through us.
Speaking of voluntarily, I wanted to invite our viewers again to call 423-413-7321, to email us at live@missiontv.com, or to send us a message on Facebook. Mission TV Live is the page. Or also you can send to Twitter at missiontv_com. And, you know, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your reactions. We want you to participate. And so we just ask that you would take a second to share with us your thoughts, because, you know, we don't want to do this for ourselves. We want to do this so that you as a viewer can share with us also. So please feel free to participate now, and we look forward to talking with you.
Yeah, and that's the reason we kind of left this open.
Right.
So people could respond and become a part of the discussion, because it's a live show.
Right.
So we want to give people a chance to respond, and I think it's kind of cool. It's a lot of fun. In this day and age, the people can respond in so many different ways.
Right. Right. Yeah, I feel like I'm listing a long list every time I say everything that we can. You know, I wanted to say, though, this video, he talks about how we've distanced ourselves from our fellow men and how our hearts are so distant. And I was thinking about that. Yeah, that's the name of the title of the video, is Depraved Indifference.
And it's the condition of my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Sabbath we were at a church and they were singing Far and Near the Fields Are Teeming. And it's talking about the sheaves of grain and bringing them in, and Lord, send forth reapers. And all of that language is beautiful, because it's it comes from Christ. It's, you know, it's from his words in Scripture, but yet it's a distancing. Do I see in those sheaves, do I see the faces of the people? Do I see when I ask him to send a reaper, do I see myself? You know, we've distanced ourselves.
The first time I saw the video, I didn't hear that part when God said, what is if this kid was Hudson? And I didn't hear that part, so I didn't understand. But then the second time, I noticed that he was talking about his son. And one of the questions one of the objections a lot of people give is my family. But in the video, you can see that go ahead. The phone
We
is
have a
ringing,
phone call.
so we-
That's God's family.
Yep.
Hello and welcome to Mission TV Live.
Thank you very much. God bless you. I wanted to congratulate you, first of all, for the TV that you are doing live, and we're hoping for the blessings of God to be poured upon you guys.
Thank you so much.
It's a great pleasure to be live talking to you today. We're calling you from California. My name is Brother Danny Sandoval.
Okay, nice to talk to you.
Awesome.
Did you have a question or comment for our show tonight?
Yes, we sure do. Our heart is already on the mission field, and we would like to see and ask the question on how do you do when, because the economy is basically affecting everybody, every single mission field that it's outside the United States, also inside the United States. How do you do if your heart is already out to go on the missionary field and try to work for the Lord, but there's no money involved? How can you handle that situation?
Okay, well, thank you for your call and your question, and we'll be answering just a moment after we hang up. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
All right,
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless
Bye-bye.
you. How do you be a missionary when there's so little funds? Well, I think there's two ways. One way is to trust God more. Another way is to lower your expectations of how you're going to live. We have family that's living in a bamboo hut in the jungle. We have missionaries coming from China that are used to, they go through this training program where it's not, they just try to train you to live longer because they know you're probably going to end up dying from getting caught and persecuted and jailed and beaten and all this kind of stuff. They just, so some of their training, the missionary training, includes jumping out of a second-story window with your hands tied behind your back. See if
Wow.
you can survive the fall. So, when we start talking about taking the gospel to the world, God took the children of Israel into the Negev desert where there wasn't anything and there was no source of income or support there. And so the question is how bad do we want that? How bad do we want to take Christ to somebody that would die if we did not do that?
I want to tie it up with what I was saying before, and is that if we understand that the people out there, God is expecting from us to love them as our own family. So we have to sacrifice for them, because I was saying about the question, what about my family? But if my family is two people at my home, and God is telling me your family is billion of people that are lost, then you have to put it in a balance. And I think, his question is how do you do it? And yes, we struggle with funds, but I think you start little by little. And it's hard to say, but God is not gonna make it easy. Sometimes if we are working full time, so let me work part time. God sometimes say, well, it's not enough. I need you to trust me more. And then a lot of people that go to the mission field or start making the first steps, they say everything is going back. We don't have enough money, but it's because maybe you're still trying to help God. It's like the pineapple story. He gave the pineapples to God, but he was telling God what to do with them. And I think God wants, and you're saying that God brought Israel to the desert. But it was not only the desert, then they got to the point that there was no water. So they got out with water, with food. But it's not enough that you got out. Now you have to run out of water, run out of food, so you can start trusting more and more.
And that's a key point. I'm glad you brought that up, because God could have had the water there before they came, and then they wouldn't have had to stress. But he let the water run out. He took them into a situation on purpose where the water was undrinkable or just wasn't there, so that they would learn to
trust.
ask and to have that relationship, learn to trust. And maybe God sometimes lets the money run out on us to see if we'll still follow, if we'll
But
still
we've
trust.
seen many times, when people want to go into the mission field,
Yeah.
God provides in amazing ways. That doesn't mean there are no trials, like you're talking about,
Right.
because we're not trying to go along with the enemy's kingdom here. So we're trying to go the exact opposite from the way the devil wants us to, and God's going to allow us to be tested, as far as we can handle. He knows how far that is. So
When I came here with my wife, I quit my job. But she was right in the middle of finish a contract. So just because the contract finished, she was able to have how do you call that?
severance pay?
Yeah, that she continued
little
getting
extra?
a little extra. So we were okay. And we said, well, God is blessing, because it took a little longer, and we were getting that little bit of money, and we were okay, but we ran out of that. So now it's saying, well, is everything or nothing? And I think, but God is merciful. He's not gonna, kill you of a starvation, but He take you to where you completely trust in Him.
Yes.
And I think is that the beginning, and to answer to Danny, God is testing you right now. And even though money is tight, I think the best thing is to get to where you have nothing, and then you can see God working. And it's a long process, a painful process, but God is merciful, and He will provide. He will provide. If you step your feet into the water will open. But you have to.
And I think this is a question that each person individually can ask God. How do you want me to serve you? How do you want the finances to work? Because even if you're a missionary living in a very inexpensive country, still you have some expenses.
Yeah.
How are you going to provide for that?
Buy
So
food
Lord,
or whatever.
what do you want me to do? And you can claim the promise that says He will guide you into all truth. That's not just theological truth. If anyone wills to do His will or wants to do the Lord's will, he shall know the doctrine or the teaching. So God wants to teach us how He wants to lead. He is a kind shepherd. And the shepherd doesn't say, sheep, go over there and just watch to see if he makes it. He's there teaching and being with the sheep. Christ's biggest desire is to enter into that relationship of trust and dependence and understanding. And He wants to paint for us. He wants to educate us and teach us. Maybe He wants you to go with AFM, where they do a very structured program, and it's very powerful, and it's very researched and everything like that. But you go and everything's planned out. Maybe He wants you to go a little differently, like, buy a plane ticket and go. I don't know, but God knows. And so He can work all these details out. And He can work on, but the key is that we have to seek Him and say, God, how do you want me to serve? I want to serve you, and I will serve you. Mrs. White talks about the prayer that, you press your petitions to the throne with an urgency that will not be denied. God, I want to serve you. For me, I had to pray 6 months, morning, noon, and night, sometimes hours at a time, until God moved, and then the way was clear. But it wasn't easy. God didn't carry us in. We had to sacrifice.
Right.
And we had to continue to sacrifice. And it wasn't until several years later, after we had committed to do full-time ministry, that God finally got us into a situation where we couldn't take care of ourselves.
There was a step-by-step to that. Yeah.
And I was freaking out. Because I'd always been told, you never allow yourself to get into a situation that you can't get out of. You always provide for it. You always plan ahead.
We've got another call.
Praise the Lord.
Welcome to Mission TV Live. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing fine. Did you have a question for us this evening?
Yes, this is Courtney calling, and I was calling about the video that you just showed. Is that readily available?
Yes.
Yes, it's on ellerslie.com.
Yes.
It's on
Okay,
YouTube
and
too.
It's
my
also,
other question is, I'm a missionary, Bible teacher and medical missionary, and we are trying to motivate people to do missions similarly as such.
Excellent.
And from the teacher standpoint, do you have any possible methods that would help to motivate people to do the work as such?
okay.
I mean, it's really a simple question, but it's kind of a complex. I think that's the problem we have with getting our church members to actually make a commitment and give themselves into full-time mission work.
Right, right. Well, thank you. We'll be answering your question right after we hang up.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
calling.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Well, that was a good question.
That's an excellent question. Wow, that's why we have Mission TV.
Right.
I think the first thing will be watch Mission TV.
Right.
It's a very good tool, but I mean, you know, of more.
to motivate people to become more involved with missions.
Right.
I think we need to talk about it more. I think we need to show more videos. I think we need to bring about it. You know,
There's some Bible studies that help too.
there are the theology of missions.
That's huge.
It's huge, and a lot of people, you know, I got involved with missions way before I started thinking, realizing, what is the theology of missions? Where does it talk about in the Bible about being missions? And I've seen a quote that said, if you take out missions from the Bible, you end up with the front and back cover. So missions is throughout the Bible. And so, you know, the theology of missions, it's been extricated from our theology, our everyday, our, you know, weekly sermons. We've missed that. And, you know, you go to the most holy, or the holy place, and you've got the three things. You've got the bread, which is eating the word. You've got the altar of incense, which is prayer. And then you've got the candlesticks, which is sharing your light, sharing with others, ministering to others.
You're
You gotta
talking
have
about
all
the
of
Hebrew
it.
sanctuary, which is a
Right.
copy of what's in heaven.
Right. So how do you motivate people as a teacher? You just, I don't know. I don't have any easy answer. I wish there was an easy switch. One thing
Yeah,
is
we
you
wish
can-
there were tools. I
Yeah.
mean, the fact is that there aren't Bible studies to teach you to be a missionary.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't, aside from Mission TV and Faith Camp, there aren't a lot of videos teaching
Mm-hmm.
you to be a missionary. You know, we've had to learn by the school of hard knocks mostly.
And we still haven't learned.
No,
But
we have
you
a
know,
long way to go.
Statistics,
Yeah.
giving to missions, how many people are involved, and then I think
Is it GFI Consulting? What's
GFI Consulting has good statistics. JoshuaProject.net, very good statistics. Showing a passion for it, bringing in videos like this, anything that you can think of, and God will teach you. But I think God has the same challenge. I mean, God is more interested in missions than we are. He's up there in heaven trying to figure out, what can I do to get my church motivated and involved with my mission?
Yeah.
And I stumbled across a quote that maybe will help you. And that's from Mrs. White, where she says that the only hope for the Laodicean church, and this really caught my attention when she said the only hope, is for them to see a clear vision of their standing before God and the nature of their disease. So we have a disease, and I think it's apathy, and it's comfort,
Yeah.
and it's
It makes me think of that section in The Desire of Ages where she talks about the wrath of the Lamb.
yes,
You know, that's us. We're passing by God's children in the snow,
yes.
and they're dying, and we're just passing by.
And and the wrath of the Lamb is against those that allow
That
his
pass
children
by.
to die.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That's our standing before God. And we are Laodicean, we're in his mouth, and he's getting ready to eject us. That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. And so, we take people on trips. You can maybe take people on trips. I don't know, get
I was
people
thinking
involved, all this kind of stuff. But getting
And we call them vision trips.
yes,
So it opens our vision to see more of
Getting-
God's world.
getting that heavenly vision. Whatever you can. If you come, I use the rope thing, with the little bit of red tape at the beginning, and the rest is eternal life, and this is our earthly life. Anything that you can do to help motivate.
This gentleman, what was his name? Eric Ludi?
Yes.
And they can call us.
Yeah.
We have some
We have
videos.
we have DVDs here.
That we can share with them. They don't have to usually are long, but they can put a
little.
piece of the video to show. John is working on a video that we all hope is out there for people to watch, because he's saying it's a simple question, but it's very profound, that we don't have material that actually teach me how to go through those things that the first question was talking about, the economical,
Yeah.
the family, all the objections that we've been going through, all the questions are valid questions. It doesn't mean that we didn't go through it. We had all the struggles. But pray for more material that we can produce and that we can help. But we have videos, so you can call. You have the number by memory, and we can send them some of the videos that we have that talks about mission.
Yeah. Yeah, at Faith Camp last year, Tim Maddox told him, you came to Faith Camp, now watch Mission TV, because it's like the training ground, because we've got David Gates' sermons on there, we've got mission programs from Layman Ministries and Gospel Outreach and AWR, lots of other places, and just to broaden your perspective of the world. And so it's a valuable resource. Thank the Lord that it's there. Now it was his idea.
And we're praying that it can grow and more people can get involved and more people can start watching and they can share with their friends and neighbors and family, that more people can keep watching and growing, because I believe that there's already families in missions because of Mission TV.
Right.
And if Mission TV can be an aid to, I think his name was Andy.
I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Anyway,
I think
this
I'm a little
wonderful man that has this heart and burden, we share that, and others share that also. But if we can, whatever we can do to help each other along the way,
right,
for God's kingdom. My biggest ambition in life is to see as many people in the kingdom as possible before I die. Whatever makes that happen.
Yeah.
And he's part of what's making that happen. It's not he's doing it on his own, but I'm excited about what he's doing.
Yeah, God needs all of us to be participating.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a big point that we don't understand also.
Right.
So, well, I hate to say this, but our time is up.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Time is up. So I want to thank you, Luis, for being on and sharing a little bit from your perspective. And it was great to have some callers call in this evening and share their questions with us. And we just want to thank you as our viewers for joining us for Mission TV Live. And I want to let you know that our topic for next week's show is Stewards of Grace. And the question that we'd like you to answer by email, by Facebook, or by Twitter, and I'll give you all those in just a second, is what kind of lake are you? John will be explaining the question on next week's live. So what kind of lake are you? So if you'd like to take a shot at answering that, you can answer by emailing us at live@missiontv.com, by Facebook at Mission TV Live, or by Twitter at missiontv_com. Do you want to give them a hint what that means?
No.
Okay. Just had to make sure. So I want to thank you again for watching Mission TV Live this evening. We look forward to seeing you next Monday night at 8 p.m. May God bless you as you seek for heavenly treasure.